On YouTube, my name's James PFP. This is the Banjocast. Pitchforks and flaming torches. I'm looking for a little bit of music to put in the background. I think I'm going to go back to my own recorded material for an evening. I got a bunch of gigs which I recorded at a place called Distortion. Let me start one of my Distortion gigs. Here you go, this one by Corb Lund.
Always keep your head on the bed. Son, don't you never put your hat on the bed. Cause if your hat's on the bed, you might wake it up dead. So don't you never put your hat on the bed. If you do, shorts upside down. Son, if you do, shorts upside down. If it's upside down, keeps the luck running out. So if you do, shorts upside down. And never throw a match where it's dry. Son, never throw a match where it's dry. And if you don't throw the match, then the grass can't catch you. Burn 3 counties when it's dry. And always keep an edge on your knife. Son, always keep an edge on your knife. Because a good sharp edge, that's a man's best hedge. Against the big uncertain he's alive. Yes, a good sharp edge, that's a man's best hedge. Against the uncertain baker he's alive. But I never could sharpen no knife like the one who gave me advice. Said yodelay, yodelay, yodeloo. Don't you never sell your old 22. Son, don't you never sell that old 22. Cause that old 22 shot to go for over 2. So you never sell that old 22. Aim it to the left a little low. Son, aim it to the left a little low. Cause that old line of sight fires high to the right. So aim it to the left a little low. And be sure to take the glass when you pour. Son, be sure to take the glass when you pour. If you don't take the glass, then the foam comes fast and runs from the table to the floor. And then you always keep an edge on your knife. Son, always keep an edge on your knife. Because a good sharp edge, that's a man's best hedge. Against the big uncertain he's alive. Yes, a good sharp edge, that's a man's best hedge. Against the uncertain baker who's alive. But I never could sharpen no knife like the one who gave me advice. Yodelay, yodelay, yodeloo. Here comes the tricky verse. Be sure to put your horse away dry. Son, be sure to put your horse away dry. Because that horse that ain't healthy, of course. So be sure to put your horse away dry. And be sure to tell the bit when it's cold. Son, be sure to thaw the bit when it's cold. Cause if you don't thaw the bit, then the pony's son sticks to the pros and it'll bridle when it's cold. And never judge a man by his clothes. Son, never judge a man by his clothes. Hey, you got to look through the dirt, Lord, judge him by his work. Don't you never judge a man by his clothes. Then you always keep an edge on your knife. Son, always keep an edge on your knife. Cause a good sharp edge, there's a man's best hedge. Against the big uncertain he's alive. Yes, a good sharp edge, there's a
Got my clickety-click done in the background.
baker who's alive. But I never could sharpen no knife
Clicking's done.
like the one who gave me advice.
They're clicking. And that would be a Corb Lund cover, courtesy of me, James PFP. Hey, I've got a couple of news stories I want to go over before I get into anything else tonight. But this is the first. This is the first and the main one. And I've also got I've got something to test out here. I think it should work just fine. I'm going to have to pull up this for a moment while I test it. I want to have some idea from feedback and throughput, as it were. How to make this work. So I should now be able to say, yeah, this way on screen. Great. And I also have this or this. Right, excellent. Perfect. This allows me to make indication on screen now with my mouse. Boy, this is nice. And my mouse is pen controlled. So I'm going to keep this chat up on top. Here's a news story from the province I'm currently residing in. A look at the flood, ice damage in Newfoundland's west coast. Flooding in Benoit's Cove here in one of the hardest hit areas. You can see over on this side of the screen, that's the house part, and that is a garage. Practically submerged. Cleanup continues after heavy rain. Fast melting snow caused massive damage on Newfoundland's west coast last week. Over the last few days, this is via CBC, by the way. Over the last few days, new problems emerged due to rising levels of the Humber River caused by ice jams. Imagine it could be partly by ice jams, although there might not have been a whole heck of a lot of ice, and therefore it all flowed down really quickly and got caught up somewhere downriver. There's also the matter of how much water is running through upriver, right? Nothing is frozen, ladies and gentlemen. Nothing is frozen is the actual issue. There's too much water, right? Ice jams are causing too much water. Okay. Okay. I got... Look at this. I can do this without ever clicking on anything. Oh, I love it. Ow! I'll clear that for a moment. I won't lose my mind with my new toy. Hey, below are some of the most compelling images depicting the fierce weather and the aftermath. Look at that, frankly Discordian talk there. Front step of the Jesso family home in Benoit's Cove, seen also in the photo above, was washed away last Saturday. Oh yeah. Yeah, we're not standing on a house and that's the deck attached to the house or something. No, that's free floating. Ah. Yuck. Front step, yep. Image shows the extent of the destruction of Route 450 in Bay of Islands. It's quite significant in the sense that this is the road surface. I indicated here with the yellow. This is the road surface, so I'll put a yellow line on it. Dotted yellow line. I'll change to red or blue here. This is where the dotted yellow line would be. So all of this washed out. Floodwaters surround homes and other buildings Sunday in Trout River. Yeah, the Trout River got pretty hard hit by the look of it. The vehicles there on the road. But the water is backing up all over. It's free flowing there alongside the houses and stuff. So the river itself is over here in Trout River. Or was, and then it overflowed banks and headed back that way. Uprooted mud and earth plunged down the hill into the back of Mildred Hackett's garage in Benoit's Cove. A huge subsidence in the land due to the water and the fact that there is no frost in the ground. Actually pushed the car through the front door as the subsidence occurred. So this has been banged away in the back there and is pushed through. Mudslide blocked the main road to and from Muddy Point right here. The trees do not normally grow in the middle of our roads here. That's not normal. Water levels in Corner Brook were dangerously high last Saturday, seen here from Margaret Bowater Park. Indeed, right up to the tree lines, much farther than normal. Subsidence in the highway here. Something washed clear through. Another one here. Underneath section of Washout Highway near Little Rapids. And that just west of Little Rapids there. It's the same one, I guess. You can see how much how much road surface gets put down over the years. Fire trucks going through up there. Halfway point. Trout River. Going around this corner of the school at Trout River, this is. Playing ice hockey. Eesh. This is the main highway, the Trans-Canada Highway over here on the side. In Corner Brook, or outside of Corner Brook. That's the ice jam there. Ice was flowing down the Humber River near Nicholsville Bridge this week, but ice jams became the new concern. Here we go. There's the jam. There's an actual picture of the jam. Wow. More of the bank slid into the... I don't know if it's entirely ice or if it must be ice and slush and partly ground, right? It must be dirt too some of the time. Imagine. So that's item number 1. Item number 2. Opinion. An opinion piece on CBC Radio or on CBC's website here. After last week's storm, we need to talk about climate change. Because we haven't been talking about climate change for a very, very long time now. Premier Dwight Ball is not the only one expecting more extreme weather events. Climate change is often perceived as an abstract concept seen from afar. Really? Really? Climate change is seen as an abstract concept seen from afar. Something for generations down the road. Really? Is this Dwight Ball? Is this literally Dwight Ball who wrote this? No, it isn't. Last week's heavy rainfall and flooding events in western Newfoundland are sober reminders climate change is closer than we think. Oh. Climate never ever stops changing. It never ever did. That's the whole point. So this is a little bit of hand waving. Unusually warm temperatures. We were talking about how unusually cold it was not 2 weeks ago. Heavy precipitation. Seasonal. This is very normal. If it's cold or if it's warm, we get a lot of precipitation in this season. Snow melt, that usually happens in the spring, that's true. Water overflow usually happens in the spring, that's true. Hey John, how you doing? Mudslides combine severe damage to people's homes, infrastructure, and roads. I agree, but this is actually quite seasonal. I don't think this is anything abnormal at all. In some sense. The climate change connection. The climate change connection. Implications were apparent in Newfoundland and Labrador's Premier. Climate change is real. Premier told CBC Radio earlier this week, and I agree, we need to do the best we can when we replace infrastructure, make sure we have the appropriate infrastructure in place to handle weather events like this. Normal weather events. This is a great picture here showing what I was trying to show earlier, how much asphalt there is to underlay, and that in Newfoundland we don't always use a heavy rock base under our road surfaces. All of the highway in the Terra Nova Park region was replaced for this exact reason years ago. Yes, it's true, there's climate change. There was always climate change. Climate never stopped changing. Where did they get this silly idea? There has always been climate change. It's part of the point. That's why people change. among other reasons. And they don't always change like immediately or overnight, that's for sure. There are always, though there are varying factors at play with the relationship between short-term weather events like the floods in regards to climate change, a warming event can change in frequency and intensity in extreme weather events, making them stronger and more frequent. More frequent than once every 12 months or so, or a couple months, in the season. The much of Newfoundland and Labrador coastline is highly rocky, rugged area. Rising sea levels, coastal erosion, and increased storms pose adaptation challenges and costs. Sounds to me like they're actually trying to make a mountain out of a molehill. And there's the linkage in their mind. But in my mind, this is ill-proven and therefore highly suspect. According to the province's 50-year climate projections, temperatures are expected to get warmer, and the province will see an increase in the precipitation and extreme weather events over the next 20 to 50 years. Wow, that's a bit of a margin of error there. I've heard there's more worry now we're going back to a mini ice age. Not sure if that's true. I've heard the same thing, and I understand what the implication is. It's entirely possible. The other thing is that we're going to see regional change. Many ice ages can be regional, and then sometimes it's as if they seed and spread out over other areas. I mean, like a seed of a plant gets planted. There's something like a particle causes a crystal of ice to form, and then the rest of the ice kind of forms off of it. You can get a mini ice age turn into a general ice age. It starts in a cycle, and then the next thing you know, it kicks in, reaches a balance or reaches a counter tipping point and goes to another phase, right? If there's a general warming trend, the regions that are in mid-latitudes are likely to be the ones who experience the most change, but it doesn't necessarily have to be warm if it doesn't necessarily be warm there if the general trend is warm. It could be cold there because convection. Cold air goes one way, hot air goes the other. For instance, Hurricane Igor caused $51 million in damages, isolated approximately 90 communities due to road closures, put 22 communities in a state of emergency. That was true. That was in 2008 or 9, I believe. Which is, once every 10 years. What's that? That we actually see a hurricane as opposed to a tropical storm. Because we've seen plenty of tropical storms. Though there is not an estimate of the damages of last week's events in the West Coast, expected that the heavy rainfall and rapid snow melt from the warm temperatures have done millions of dollars in damage to structures and roads. 2015 assessment of Natural Resources Canada estimates that by 2020, it's 2 years' time, annual economic damages to Canada's coast from sea level rise and storm surges could reach between 2.6 and 5.6 billion, which is a ballpark figure they pulled out of their ass. How did they figure that? They're going to get everybody to start claiming these damages, increasing to an estimated 48 billion by 2080. Well, But yeah, this isn't a problem for our grandchildren or our children, right? This article doesn't follow its own rationale. Limiting the rise in global temperatures to key and mitigate and help minimize the damage caused by limiting the rise in global temperatures is key. Oh, really? No, I don't think it is key. Limiting the rise in global temperatures after the carbon is out of the bottle, so to speak? How are you going to do that without trying to initiate another positive feedback loop? No thanks. It is not key to mitigating and minimizing and limiting the rise by what? Taxation. Taxation if we're lucky. And if we're not lucky, they use actual chemical or some physical supposed going to do the thing stopgap measure. According to a NASA report, most of the warming has happened in the past 35 years. Exactly. Because the carbon was out of the bottle decades ago. Unless we cut greenhouse gas emissions significantly, the effects of climate change will continue to grow in scale. We've been cutting them really for quite some time now. That's the thing this article seems to not understand, is that we actually have been cutting becoming more efficient in some ways with the carbon output. Because, among other reasons, the cost of the gas or the fuel itself has gone up so much in the previous few decades. Some of us don't want to say that there is no such thing. Some of us want to say there's no such thing as peak oil. I think that's part of the reason why the price went up, though. And consequently, the damage in terms of the carbon bottle is already out of the bottle. It occurred during the early part of the 20th century, the heaviest times of burning, the most profligate times. Last November, the UN climate negotiations in Bonn, Germany, governments convened to develop the tools for implementing the Paris Agreement. I attended as a youth delegate. It's the person who's writing this article. So it's the voice of youth, who were usually not supposed to be thinking about something that we got to worry about for our grandchildren. Now it's the voice of youth that's going to be the authority. I see. Bottled water is sometimes more expensive than gas. Indeed it is. Indeed it is. Which is a fucking shame too. Really, what you're buying in the bottle is not the purity of the water. It's the water rights for the local whoever. Yeah, I found that a curious article. Here's a third article. Newfoundland Labrador government grounds the airspace theory. I reported on my channel here a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, or maybe, about this story. This is retired engineer David Fox pointing to one of his charts containing information revenue the federal government had collected and that he believes Newfoundland and Labrador is owed for use of its airspace since Confederation. Article published by Glenn Whiffen of the Telegram, that is a transcontinental paper. Hey, Helljack, how you doing? Province says it has no plans to take legal action. The province itself says, this is the provincial government, I might add. When it says province, it means provincial government. Doesn't necessarily speak for the people. It says there's no plans to take legal action against the federal government, the feds here, for millions of dollars collected in fees. For billions, sorry. I'll get that right. I'll write that over here on the side just to be sure. Billions. Billions. Provincial government, which says it's got a big, huge problem with money, says it's got a big problem with the books not balancing correctly when they inherited a government which brought back billions in, not reparations, but billions in payments from the federal level. How could this be? Claimed by retired engineer that Newfoundland and Labrador still owns its airspace, and should receive more than $9.8 billion Canadian for its use since Confederation is not taking off with the provincial government. Not taking off. Oh. Statement by the Telegram. Statement to the Telegram Thursday. The provincial government said it has examined the issue a number of times in the past and has not found a basis for the legal claim. Of course it hasn't. And has not found a basis for the claim. Department of Justice and Public Safety has examined the constitutional issue of the ownership and control of airspaces and a number of occasions for government, it said. For government, it said. Oh, Department of Justice and Public Safety. Which government department is this? Is this provincial or federal? And moreover, is this a renamed government department? Did it used to be just the government Department of Justice, but now it's the Department of Justice and Public Safety? So that you can make it sound like it's still the modern one, but it's actually some previous incarnation of the same fucking department, if you get me. For government. The Department of Government has done it for government, which means, oh, right. I think I got a word for this. I think I've got a big word for this. We can just scratch both of these out. I think I know what the word is. Here's the word. Government does not plan to bring any legal action in respect to this matter in the foreseeable future. Of course it doesn't. In Telegram story last week, David Fox claims research showed that Newfoundland Labrador continued to be sole owner of the airspace since 19 of 49, and that the federal government collected about $20 billion, including interest, on it since that time. 19.7, the actual figure, but I'll call it 20 if you don't mind. He said now that if half went back to the province, he said that if half went toward providing aviation services and the remaining half, about 9.85 billion, should have been returned to the province. That's a transfer payment, is what he's talking about. Danny Williams, one of our previous premiers, as I said a moment ago, the government which is currently in power is a Liberal government. The previous governments to him included one by a man named Danny Williams. Danny Williams brought back a huge transfer payment. It's called a transfer payment. A huge transfer payment, which was about half this figure. But this was some years ago. Fox has worked as an engineer in both Newfoundland, Labrador, and Nova Scotia, and was port manager and CEO of the St. John's Port Authority from 1980 until his retirement in 1998. He said that through his work with Port Authority, he became quite familiar with user pay systems by which airspace revenue is obtained. Fox said provincial government's response does not surprise him and will not deter him. That's good news, I think. I like this. Damn the politics, full speed ahead. He said they had contacted government ministers and premiers in the past and about the issue and rarely got a response. He's getting one now. I'm going to continue on with my research and talk to more people. He said the government doesn't want to touch this at all, but we've got to keep up the push to make them look at it. We can't afford to let it die. It's been an ongoing issue for him and his family to a degree since 1949 or prior to. I'm going to keep going with regard to doing research whether the government does it or not. I started off in the early 2000s, going to keep updating the numbers. As you update, money gets bigger. The number's only going to get bigger with time. Truth. Fox said that in 1944, a British Dominion with suspended status, Newfoundland representatives attended the Chicago Convention of the International Civil Aviation Authority. That's when it was kicked off, the Chicago Convention. So that's the ICAO and ORD. Is that not the name of the airport there? Newfoundland representatives were part of the UK delegation. International agreement on civil aviation reached at this time was signed by the UK on behalf of Newfoundland and Labrador since they were commissioning our government, given the Dominion control of its airspace. Dominion of the United Kingdom. Fox said that his interpretation of the province's terms of union with Canada showed did not contain the transfer of ownership back to the airspace of Canada. Others disagree. This would be the entirety of the claim then. Curious, right? Others disagree. Fox said he had read and heard the arguments of those who say he's wrong, but suggests only proper research into the issue would determine who was right. Gone through the argument time and again for the last 10 years, he said. It's the way the terms of union was written. I'm going to stick to my opinion and I'm going to improve on my research. Fox first went public with his theory in the mid-2000s. In February 26, 2005, that's 13 years ago, Telegram story referred to briefing notes prepared for the then Premier Danny Williams, who came home from the federal government prior to 2009, gets transfer payments from the federal government totaling about this. It might have been, actually I think it was trillions. It was $1 billion or $1 trillion. Probably billion would sound closer to it, right? I'm going to prove my point on this one. I guess it was billion. Must have been billion. Yeah, they've written books about this man. From this is from 2010. Mulling over this month's two big political resignations. This is when he resigned. Newfoundland's Danny Williams got to think about contrasting style when it came to provincial federal relations. Williams presided over an unprecedented boom for Newfoundland and Labrador, famously fought and maintained federal equalization payments, transfer payments to his province, even as its oil-fueled economy, because that's where that billion came from, or those billions, have outgrew a have-not status. Newfoundland is slated to receive $2,268 per person this year from Ottawa, while British Columbia gets only $1,300 per person. Curious what the actual figure was. Yeah, he did it with Stephen Harper in government too. And June 16, 2009, Williams announced the government had concluded an agreement with oil companies to expand Hibernia's oil field, or the Hibernia oil field, in which the provinces would have a 10% equity stake in the Hibernia South Extension. The deal promised to add $13 billion to the province's coffers, yet the government currently says we're under a financial crunch. And yet, that's what they say. To exclude non-renewable energy sources from the equalization formula. That's where the transfer payment came back from. In order to thwart Harper's re-election, Williams launched an ABC campaign, anything but conservative, himself being a conservative, a progressive conservative, two variants of conservatives here. Williams is the subject of a 2014 National Film Board documentary entitled Danny. Gee, I wonder would I be able to watch that? Since it is, oh yeah, it's National Film Board. Oh wow. Shit. Copy. I'm saving that for later. That's like so later. Let me put that in my whiteboard. But first, I've got a little thing to do. Do I do it in Blender first, or do I do it in Google Maps first? I'm going to try it in Google Maps. This is for hip hop. Been having some discussions today on the video I uploaded, the first part of Fours Day. Podcast episode 77, the first part, the hour-long one, pertaining to Charlottesville. I was quite happy with the way that little hour turned out. It's got almost everything in it to establish with very little evidence who is what and where. In my mind, I was quite pleased with it. And I only needed to sync 2 pieces of video to really make it work. We're popping into Charlottesville using Google Maps. I'm going to switch over to Street View now in a moment. There's Main Street. There's 5th Street. Bridge Street. Southwest. Yeah, a lot of clicking and looking here now, huh? There's Water Street East, Downtown Mall, Garrett Street. I only need to look a little more carefully. I spent so much time. I spent so much time already looking and considering this stuff. I know that I want to go right to this intersection. And I know I want to use this little dude to do it. Right in the middle of Downtown Mall, please. Up the hill, Peckable Pig. Let me move my little man. So here I am now right in the middle of the intersection. How do I minimize this one? Here. Here am I in the middle of this intersection. I can use my mouse wheel to zoom in and zoom out. I can put myself down in the road surface and use my mouse wheel to zoom in, zoom out, and a left click to literally zoom in or to aim it. And if I put myself at where Ryan Kelly is, more or less, somewhere between here and here, in fact, maybe even a little bit behind here, I'll show you why in a moment, at least this far down the hill, using Google Maps, spot this area underneath the bridge at the bottom. Don't click on it. Zoom in on it. Even with this car in the way, you can see clearly the stop sign, yellow signs, and everything. And this is not skyline, but roadway. You can't see the skyline below it. Skyline is way above it. There's a mountain range, for Christ's sake, over here. Look. Anyone down on ground level is not going to see sky through this bridge at the bottom. What appears to be sky is not sky at all. This is all down this way. And he's zooming in from all of this distance up the hill to see such a little small area. So that's the first thing. And like I say, I've used Google Maps to do this. The next thing is going to take a little bit of screwing around. And I'm going to do it between Blender and something else. Under my concordance, I don't need to use any synchronized clips tonight whatsoever. I only need to look at individuals clips. And this is the main one I'm going to be looking at. It is the infamous Gilmore. But see, Gilmore's got so many infamous things on his infamous little tape. These are motion stabilization clips that I did on the top here. So I can tell how fast the car is going. I can tell his brake is on. I can tell when he stops braking. And I can tell from his camera angle. I can even make it a little easier to see it by recoloring the image very, very slightly, which is exactly all Ryan Kelly needed to do for his picture to work. And as the camera, this is, by the way, this is his video straight off of his Twitter feed. This is what was released after the cops allowed it to be released. And it was only a few hours later. So there's a nice still shot frame, and it still doesn't have all the detail, but you can see there's a stop sign here and then another one down here. He moves his position more than once. I've got a series of marks made here so we can jump in and out. Looking underneath the overpass down there now. Stop sign, yellow sign. Clearly seeing underneath it down there now on the road surface, which is well lit by sunshine. I draw your attention to this part. Between this mark and the next mark that I made, these dotted lines, I need another image loaded, so I'm going to quickly pull up the image that I need. Whichever is the smallest one I can get away with. This one map one probably. Yes. I need this only for one small purpose, and I'm gonna use it right now though. I'll put this over here and cover the chat for a moment. Here's the downtown mall crossover. Here's the intersection where the accident occurs or the attack occurs. This is the road. This is the corner Gilmore runs around. Gilmore is somewhere. I'm going to use the marker right now. Ooh. Gilmore must be somewhere about here. And he'll go up around the corner during the course of the video. And he'll move out to about halfway on the street and no more than halfway. He'll be always on the sidewalk or within that distance. That's the first thing. So when Gilmore turns around, we see the parking spots across the street from him there. You see the line there. And you see the little bollard there. Up here. Pay attention to that for a moment. I contend that that is pretty close to this corner. It's right about here. And then the line comes across that way. In fact, I should probably even consider erasing that and doing it in another color just to make it really clear. The bollard is here, and the line on the road in front of it, on the way down the hill. right? Notice there's nobody up there taking a picture right now. And when he turns around again, right as he snaps around, we can clearly see through the bottom, underneath the overpass, as it were, of the train lines, under, like down the road. Red sign, yellow sign. It all depends on how picky you want to be about what Gilmore can see. I can see 3 red ones there now. 1, 2, 3. On the opposite side of the road. And turn on the color pass just to see if that won't pop out a little more. All the elements are right there. And just as this guy's head coming in the shot here, right over his head, so yeah, I'll indicate here with the pen. So Gilmore turns his camera a second time, and when he does, you see what I see? Guess who's still snapping shots there? Because he took a few shots. Oh, I'm going to mark him on the map first. Now he's well in advance of that line. I mean to say, Kelly is here somewhere. That's Kelly. So when he took those first shots, he was up here and moved forward as he took more shots so that he could widen his angle. Because when he was up here, he had to zoom in more and had less of a frame to work with. And everything he was taking into the frame was flat because he was zoomed in so much. I mean to say, it looked like it was all on the same plane in depth, but you couldn't really tell how deep in depth that shot was because of how much he'd zoomed in with this here very long lens. And as he moved forward down the road, he gradually pulled the zoom back so that he saw more of what was happening down the street. But a lot of what he was looking at down the street wasn't interesting. It was mostly this little area right immediately down the road. Not everything above it, not everything to either side of it. There was just brick walls. So, now that that's been established, here's Ryan Kelly, who happens to be in Gilmore's video. Let's see what happens next. I can turn off these things. That would be better. Gilmore boogies around the corner because the car is reversing. Here comes the car. You can see him through the reflection or through the window. I'll full screen this. Over across the street. That's Kelly. Kelly's finished his shooting and boogied back around the corner where he fucking started. Because Kelly's story is that the car reversed past him, he crossed the street in front of it, and then the car came back down the hill, and then he came around the corner and started shooting. He didn't have to go very far to start shooting though, did he? He had all the time in the world to get a really difficult shot with this fucking look how bright the light is out here in the roadway. We're in shade right now, shooting out into brightness. It's already over brightened. Nice sharp corners on the shadows and shit. See that? He had to allow for all of that light to get that shot. And part of the reason that he could was he'd zoomed in so much and he'd really tightened his aperture. It's just a tiny little pinprick of light, or like as tight as you could possibly get it. Because you can't open his aperture too wide for all of the light in the situation that he's shooting into, directly up sun. Well, it's not directly up sun, but the sun is in this direction. So this shadow here is being cast from something up here. The same as this shadow over here is being cast by something farther up the road like a pole. Like that pole. Or that pole. So as I say, Kelly boogies around the corner, right across the street there. Back where he came from. Second time he's gone to that corner. Second time the car is reversed through the intersection. Now, before we get any further, that wasn't stuck there ever since he hit anybody. No. That was in the roadway. He reversed over it, and this stuff picked it up. Agreed? Don't really need to see much more. I'm keeping an eye out for Ryan Kelly. Is that him? Just come on the camera frame here. Is this Ryan Kelly? Because the last we saw him, he was over here. Nope. Guess fucking what? That could be though. He don't even move off this fucking corner. He's Johnny in the spot. Don't get me wrong. What I'm saying is we don't need Photoshop to get that shot. That's all I'm saying. We need him ready to go for the difficulty of the situation, which is he's shooting into the sunshine, down the hill, from distance. That's the problem. How did he get that shot? He didn't start on... He couldn't have been over on this side of the road when he ran out and started shooting up the road. He had to have been on this side of the road, which means he crossed this way, the car reversed past him once. Or how was it? The car reversed past him, he crossed in front of it, one way or the other. And then when the car came back down the road, he says he came around the corner, or he says he started taking the pictures. So I think he was on that corner before, during, and afterward. Gilmore really doesn't help Kelly a hell of a lot, other than he's Johnny on the spot. He might be a second pair of eyes for Kelly. One thing you won't be seeing, saw some of your new footage to work on. I didn't get any new stuff, terribly new, other than the one Nun linked today, the HD one, which is on the corner immediately before the accident, on the west corner. So they come walk right around them, or Heather Heyer like walks into the frame immediately in front of them, past the Taste of India van. So she's without a doubt right there. And then the footage I aired last night wasn't. I mean, it's not new footage, but Nun did point out to me where I had it right. The time agreement between both of these clips is exceptionally high at the end. And if I need to be sure that Lorenz is going to be seeing where Heather is, it's to identify that Heather is standing right next to Marcus. There you can see, what's her face there? Marissa. I guess that's Heather from back on right here. In front of the blonde. Or the blonde is that person, never mind. There's Marcus. I didn't have to do any other synchronization whatsoever. It was this clip only. I've already got marks put down pretty much where they got to be. She spins around once, and she must get both of them when she does. Hair below the camera, look. There's Marcus. And Marissa. Yep, right there now. They're all three linked up now for sure. There. Only a frame or two, but clearly in the frame. So she could be the one with the pink underwear. If we needed to distinguish another way. There's one with pink underwear, there's one with white underwear. She could be the one with pink, going by the way her face is. Which means she's back by the stop sign on the line. Like in front of the line, not behind the line. Behind the line is the one who had the CPR. In which case that could be Heather as well. Either one. And as I said, leading off or finishing off last night, if I were to consider this image, which is what got us here in the first place, how many red signs, how many yellow signs and the like that, stop sign, yellow, yellow. Real thing to bear in mind here is this person. I think this person is the one which is standing out for me right now. Here we can see the sunshine on this, so she's behind this guy, and obviously not as far back in the background as to be out of focus like this girl in behind. This woman in behind is way, way back from the scene. How far back is she from the scene? The one in behind, I don't know. Well, probably behind that stop sign and in front of that stop sign. So in the intersection, it could be anywhere, right? She can't be all the way back down by the parking garage. She's somewhere in front of that, but yet she's behind this stop sign. This person looks to me like it could be Heather Heyer in the air. The one with the red circle or the red highlight around. Yellow sign still on the lady there. She gets flipped. Look. Someone's head on the ground there. Look. Holy shit. Ah, man. If I didn't know better, I'd have said that was Taylor Lorenz. But I didn't. She's not wearing a hat. Yeah, we're not looking near enough back this way on the street to actually see anything past the crowd as it jumps back. They're all on the sidewalk at this point. Which you can see in Gilmore's video. So it makes me wonder actually how I could do the easiest job on the last issue here. What I want is a totally blank canvas of some kind. A tabula rasa, as John Locke might say. Ha 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 ha, John Locke joke. Tabula rasa. I'll go here. I'll go here and do it by deleting everything. Oop. highlighting everything, deleting everything. I asked you to consider a question. I'm going to use my markers here to quickly draw a situation. And I ask you to consider what the deal is going to be with the situation. Let us suppose that there is an event occurring on a slope like such. Okay? Where there's a vehicle moving. Okay, I should probably try this the other way around. Where there's some kind of object moving down the hill. If anything were to get knocked that way by it, it cannot help but fall. It'll be in the air from your point of view if you're on the hill and looking up it. So really I should have done that last one probably in another color entirely. Some object like person or thing that was hit by this thing is going to want to go that way as well as that way. Which is to say, it's when you're falling downhill, you've got further to fall. So a person who is standing down the hill and looking up the hill parallel sees somebody who's not knocked up in the air so much, but is quite clearly in the air and falling toward them. In other words, like the physics of this says that I'm going to exaggerate it, but it says this. And that's the long and the short of what happened. At least in terms of how anything could get up in the air. It's simple as that. You have a choice when you're on a grade. You can either, I'm going to reiterate it though, you have a choice when you're on a grade. You can fall uphill or downhill. If you fall uphill, it's a better bet for safety. It's the better direction to fall into. It's negative feedback. But if you fall downhill, it's positive feedback and it adds up really fucking quickly. Which is why the negative feedback's the better kind to go with. If you can possibly do it, fall uphill. The same as if you can possibly do it when something's coming at you at a specific speed, jump. Get above it, because when you're in the air, you're effectively weightless. You have mass, you still weigh something, but your mass is easily moved by a slight bit of torque or push or pull when it's off the ground, when it's not attached to something to give it stability. So that is the long and the short. Isn't this a lovely thing to have, this little pen thing? Wow. So now that the early show is done, got the news done, got the Charlottesville stuff done. Is there anything else? Yes, there's other things. Of course there's other things. I was listening last night to Styx. Styx got on a rail rant again today to keep the government shut down for good. That was a pretty good one. There's also this one, which I listened to earlier.
Movements. But I'm not.
I'm going to let him do the talking. And I will be stepping away from the screen for only a moment or two.
All right, everyone, this is just a little bit of a reflective piece. Now, first and foremost, let me say this. I have difficulties with political categories because I'm smart enough to see past false dichotomies. For instance, left and right, in the sense Americans generally hold them to be, like the great mass of people that aren't interested in learning more about politics. They're just sort of partisan or whatever, or they're ideological zealots. Left and right, in the sense that they declare it, don't actually exist. It's a false dichotomy. There are many other possible political affiliations that offer their own solutions, their own platforms and ideologies that they disclude. They don't even talk about them. They don't know they exist. They don't know anything about them in some cases, or they think that they're like fringe, fanatic, and therefore they use a little bit of a logical fallacy, and they dismiss them because they're too far outside of the Overton window. So a false appeal to moderation, I believe it's called. That being said, though, at some point you have to realize that because the majority of people perceive the world in that false term, it still does have validity within the subjective human experience, within the sense of human understanding within the vast core of people. The concept of left and right as broad banners under which people gather do actually matter. They don't matter to somebody like me because I can see that they're not real, but because they're taken up as true by so many people, they do, in a general sense, they have validity in the sense that people will tend to amalgamate under that banner, use those terms to describe themselves while sharing at least some views in common. Like you would expect. People who consider themselves to be on the left, typically they're not going to want immigration reform. They're not gung-ho about guns. They may tolerate, the concept of self-defense, but they're not going to be like, oh, rescind all gun control, haha, probably. And even though it's a stereotype, it generally holds true. The idea is that with stereotypes, something that is applicable 90% of the time, you can't apply it to any specific individual and necessarily be accurate, but you can statistically apply it to the broad bulk of a group of people. That is, the numbers don't lie, but it doesn't have to be 100% true in any individual circumstance. So when I see that the left has become so much measurably more abusive than the right, as self-described, people who describe themselves as anti-right, socialistic, democratic socialists, communists, liberals, Democrats, when I see that the bulk of people there is statistically, as a whole, more abusive, more given over to censorship, more given over to stupidity, and less intellectually honest than the broad bulk of people on the right, it gives me pause. And gets me to the point where you have to admit, if you're intellectually honest, and I am, I have no choice but to admit that at this point, within the subjective human experience, the left, self-described, is objectively worse than the right. Therefore, my tendency in such a situation, regardless of my own personal beliefs, is to tacitly side with people on the right, including the fringe right. Look, because I come to this conclusion. When I look online at people talking to me, I can see all sorts of examples of myself being abused or others being abused by people who they have like a Marx avatar or something like that. I see relatively less of that from people who proudly self-proclaim themselves to be on the right. Now, some of that's shilling, but statistically speaking, I don't think it's 10-to-1 shills to real leftists. I'm thinking that's probably a logical stretch at this point. Funnily enough, here's the big takeaway. This wasn't the case. It was almost even Stevens. Most of the leftists that talked to me at all, they were like, how can you believe this or something? But they didn't like immediately open up with a volley of insults like, oh, you're a fascist or something. Oddly enough, it isn't until I debate an ethno-nationalist publicly, when I debate Richard Spencer, that this begins to happen. Isn't that very strange? And so my message to the left at this point is this. It's obvious that people on the left are not capable of rationally debating ethno-nationalists. You're not capable of it because you immediately crumble into emotional appeals that, remember, I've tried to tell people this. They don't fucking understand it. If you're debating someone, you're not trying to convince the person you're debating. Like, if I'm debating Richard Spencer, I'm not trying to convince him of anything. If I'm debating some communist, I'm not trying to convince them to abandon communism. I'm trying to structure the things that I'm saying and intoning in such a way that the unbiased observer who's actually open-minded sides with me more than the other person. That's the point of the debate. What the left does, though, is get so emotional and self-righteous that they're incapable of debating at all. Anyone who watches that, they say, oh, you know, it's just basically a crybaby. They don't understand logic. They don't understand reason. And while most other lay people probably won't care about that specific side of the argument, they can tell the difference in behavior. It makes you look weak, honestly. So they're incapable of debating the alt-right. That means they rely upon people like me to do it for them, because they're too intellectually weak to actually accomplish that. But because they immediately turn around and begin defaming people like me and saying, well, you know, you didn't immediately do what we would do, which is come out and start saying, oh, you fuckface, I can't believe that you're an ethno-nationalist. You're such an evil Nazi. You should be strung up by a tree. They act because of their virtue signaling tendencies, they come out and will attack the person that's actually pitting a reasoned argument against an ethno-nationalist. So you know what, to the left? Fuck it. I'm not going to help you at all, and I encourage all other people who are not strictly part of the far right and say, well, you know, Heil Hitler or whatever. Don't bother debating the ethno-nationalists. Don't even bother. You know, you may think, oh, well, you know, there needs to be balance, and, you know, authoritarian is authoritarian. Okay, yeah, granted. Which side is trying to abuse?
He's waving around that damn mug. He's forced me. He's forced my hand. Not mug. He's waving around his bloody can. Okay, fine, Sticks. Have it your way. I'm doing it proper tonight. Ceremonial. Half a shot of orange juice first. Fine, Sticks. Have it your way. Fine. Fine. Okay, Sticks. Have it your way. Here, look. Double fisting. Here's the stuff to start with. Here's the stuff I'm finishing with. I got a mug. I got a can. Ready?
Us. At this point, which side is trying to censor independent content creation? It's not the ethno-nationalists. It's the left. Like, can we be honest here? There comes a point, I maintain my own beliefs. Like, some people misread what I posted last night. I said, because of the way the left is acting, I'm the ally with the far right, basically. That doesn't mean that I take up those beliefs. It means I'm looking and I'm making, in my opinion, an objective, valid judgment of the general behavior of the vast bulk of these two groups, so-called. I'm not being abused by people who say, I'm ethno-nationalistic, I'm a civic nationalist, national capitalism, national whatever-ism. Nobody in that group is abusing me. Look, I have a conversation with them. It can be friendly. We can disagree. We can agree to disagree. I hope so. But at the end of the day, we can still have a conversation without flinging shit at one another. Can I, at this point, do that with the average person who considers themselves a leftist? The number of leftists that I have communicated with in an amiable way is shrinking, and most of those people are pariahs within the left, like an H.A. Goodman. H.A. Goodman is a progressive. He's very far to the left, generally speaking. At a St. Louis. He's also a pariah among the neoliberals because he dared to criticize the Clinton campaign and the DNC.
I'm color me
he said, well, you know, Bernie can probably... I disagree with this. He's like, Bernie can win, Hillary Clinton can't. And they hated that because they're like, oh, you're trying to demoralize us. You're a secret right-winger. I'm be surprised if they didn't like try to cast him off as a Russian agent or a Nazi or something. Like, they'll call anybody a Nazi. Like some Jewish commentator at this point, subject to being fucking called a Nazi. It's dumb in every possible way. It's totally intellectually dishonest. So why on earth would I want to look at the behavior of the left, which is basically a group of chimpanzees throwing shit at everything that moves, versus the ethno-nationalists who are like, hey, you know, we want like free speech and we want to be able to debate people, and why is it that nobody's willing to debate us without using rational arguments? There's a huge difference in the behavior I see. I'm sorry, but objectively speaking, the behavior is totally different. What the fuck am I supposed to do for the rest of my life? Pretend that they're equivalent? The authoritarian tendency may be equivalent, but the thing is, the far right's not in power. Now, that's my worry. Like, my worry is, as this paradigm ends, as the right continues to rise, as I expect that it will, and becomes establishment eventually, then it becomes more authoritarian, but it's not right now. No, I see, like, people... when's the last time, for example, that an ethno-nationalist said, oh, yeah, I think that YouTube censorship is a good thing, actually. People need to be policed for hate speech. I don't think that I've heard that from anyone on the further right, but I hear it every single fucking day from the left. I even hear it from the center left. Why the hell would I want to partner with you? I'm not going to fight the battles of the left for it. Fuck them. And trust me, they need people.
I gotta be honest. Sticks, I came to that same determination many years ago, man. Many years ago. I said to myself, you know what? I got no desire to fight these people's battles for them. Especially not up here.
Who are capable of debating without immediately devolving into baby talk and emotional appeals. Now, did any of you take a course in logic? Is there a single alt-leftist who did? No, I think you were too busy with women's studies or you know, how to grow soybeans or something like that. That's not the way forward. That's not the way to win.
There's his first chuckle in the video, yeah? I have been paying attention. I was gone for 5 minutes.
Over a whole paradigm. Are you crazy, dude? It's just like when the evangelicals. This was said, I think it was 84 at the time. I used to have this uploaded to YouTube. I took it down, everything with the Radio Werewolf music, which, you know, they were called Nazis too at the time, which is even funnier.
That's it.
Because then they said Nicholas Schreck was like, you know, like cross-dressing vampire or something. So there's a little bit of overlap, a little bit of funny cultural similarity for a new
talking about Nicholas Schreck last night, actually.
Era, I think, a new generation. At the time, he said, well, we're not too worried about the evangelicals because, you know, they're basically playing the devil's game at this point. They've sold out. The reason why they seem prevalent is because they speak loudly and they've sold out. They become commercialized in an effort to sort of fight the Satanism, the moral panic. They sold out and became everything they were fighting. This is what happens to such movements. When they pretend to be morally outraged, they devour themselves. It's inevitable. It can't happen any other way. I am telling you, for people hedging your bets, with the establishment status quo being, you know, left-leaning in all general aspects.
Take my time on that,
if you are hedging your bets with them surviving the current paradigm shift, you are wrong. You're going to be disappointed. You shouldn't be hedging your bets. You should be hedging your bets with the right wing. Now, it won't be a purist variant of, oh yeah, we're going to form our ethno-state. No, but it will be an amalgamation of different opinions that will lean to the right. That's what then we simply have to see which of those opinions gains the most traction. Smart money says one thing, each group says another. It's impossible to tell specifically. Regardless, though, at least during its formative stages, it's likely to lean towards libertarianism in the moral sense. It's not going to become immediately authoritarian. The people that are worried, oh, the ethno-nationalists will take over and immediately start throwing people in concentration camps. Trust me, it's not going to happen. Historically speaking, within the context of the United States, or maybe post-World War II era Europe, it's not capable of happening. Within the legal framework and the structural cultural framework that we have, it's not going to occur. What would happen, though, is that the left would love to pile books together and burn them if they maintained control any longer. Thankfully, they're waning. Like, I look. And what I'm saying, I can show you is true by the comments that I get from people who self-proclaim socialism. I'm a proud social justice warrior. I trigger right-wing snowflakes and stuff. Most of the comments that they're leaving are simply emotional appeals. Oh, yeah, I had someone last night. I just blocked them at this point. It's like, I'm not going to bother giving them attention. It's like, you know, if you want to be a titty baby elsewhere.
Is he talking about...
One of these people's like, oh, it would be better off for the world if you and everyone like you died in a bus crash. And it's like, yes, I'm sure. This is why you are losing. I don't know if you realize that. Why do you think you lost, for instance, the last election? It boiled down to deplorables. That's all. You can sum it up in a single word. Deplorables. This wraps up, Hillary Clinton was talented enough to encapsulate the entirety of the alt-left in a single speech. It's actually quite something. The censorship, the Pepe stuff is racist, Hitler worshippers, males are evil like sexism, white people are being racist, you know, you don't know what's good for you, you peasants, just vote for me and let me make the decisions for you. And by the way, I'm going to control the media and get them to say the same thing. It's the same bull crap. And when I see, by the way, that the same boring, outdated, inefficient, establishment-controlled edifices like a CNN or MSNBC are completely on board with the alt-left and have no problem with it, when I see CNN say, oh, socialism's cool again because of Martin Luther King Day. Yeah, that gives me pause, dude. It's obviously not a grassroots movement. It looks like you're a bunch of fucking sheep to me. You're the kind of morons that I was fighting against from the other side during the Bush administration. Like, when I was reaming Republicans sometimes, I'm like, how the hell can you support this? Like, tens of thousands of people are dying, troops coming back with PTSD, we're wasting money, the economy is going total fuck mode. How can you possibly support this? And ultimately, eventually, it became a bunch of emotional bullshit aimed at me, like, oh, you're a pinko. You're not patriotic, something like that. That's what it boiled down to. And then they lost. A few years later, they practically disappear. There are no Bushites left, practically. What did Jeb manage to accomplish? But fuck nothing. There's a reason for that. What do you think's going to happen to the current paradigm with the neoliberals? They're suffering. They're suffering bastards. They're going to die off as a movement. The sick man of politics, you could call it. So yeah, I'd rather side with the alt-right, yeah. I would rather talk to people who are like literal Nazis, because the literal Nazis, oddly enough, they're not the ones burning books. The people they're arguing with, the people that are opposing them are the ones burning books and saying, let's censor and disarm and government is great and no...
How could his story, which he gave the media, add up unless he was on the east side, moved to the west side, stepped around the corner, casually took his shots, and didn't have to worry about the pressure of time in making his shots, because he only had, what, 10 seconds? Not even. He only had seconds to make all of those camera adjustments and get the shot. The only thing which I can see evidence of Photoshop in the actual image is that the light levels have been adjusted to balance them from the fact that he was shooting into the sunshine. That's it.
And there should be more of it. I'm scratching my head as to how you can associate the modern ethno-nationalist movements with Hitler when you are in fact stressing stuff that is far closer to the NSDAP than anything that they've suggested, including those that take up the banner of actual National Socialism, and most of them don't even appear to follow that. They're like, far right in the conservative sense. Now, like they warped the curve, they went further right than Crowder or something. By the way, Crowder's a funny guy when he's talking about Zhank. So no, I don't want to abuse anybody, and I'm not going to discriminate against or hate people. That's another conflation that's made with, the generic identitarian movements. But I'm not dumb. I can sort of see, it looks like one of these movements is the abusive one, and it's not the far right dude. Yeah, the golden one's not trying to censor people. Varg's not coming out and saying, delete your YouTube channel, I want to deplatform you. Tara McCarthy's not coming, Greg Johnson, Richard Spencer, these people, they're not the ones trying to shut up debate. They're the ones willing to debate others, including myself, but I'm not going to even bother to do that. I would rather just have a friendly discussion, because at this point, because I'm not part of the left, I know that the further left is going to write a hit piece against me anyway. Like Jared Holt, he sits there salivating and he wants to write like a smear piece. Well, he's going to do that anyway, so why the hell would I care about his moral judgments? Look, his paradigm is ending. That paradigm, that's not the cool kids of the new generation. The new generation is leaning further and further right as the left becomes more and more prone to all forms of statist abuse. It's as simple as that. When you can't even post a meme online, that sacred act of shitposting, when you can't even do that without being called a Nazi, that's when you know they've really, really gone way out into left field. And they don't even realize it. They don't even realize how many dead ears their arguments are falling upon. I think it's wonderfully funny. It really is at this point. So yeah, I'd rather communicate with people on the right. Again, there are still people on the left, like an H.A. Goodman. I respect them. They're not trying to deplatform others. They're part of that one candidate there. Sort of a leftist, but also deeply anti-censorship, and the neoliberals are going the wrong way. I can't remember who it was. I think that was several years ago, actually, though, so never mind. There have been people like that within the Democratic Party, within, self-proclaimed liberaldom. But they're a minority voice, whereas it's the majority opinion of people on the right. Like the evangelicons of the past that were actually abusive have been drowned out by the new right in all of its various aspects. This includes the generic new right, the anti-censorship front, the ethno-nationalists, the civics, the libertarians, and more on the minarchist side usually, sort of the Ron Pauls, the populist movements. All of these things gathered under the same banner fundamentally seem to agree on the concept of censorship. There are very few people in that group that want to even suppress what they see, in some cases as outright degeneracy. They're like, well, this is degenerate, but at the same time, it's not as bad as what the left's doing. Who fucking cares? The left, meanwhile, is like, oh, this person wants to build a wall. We should deplatform them. You know, it should be a crime to say, you know, MAGA. It should be a crime to say sovereignty is an okay idea. You know, it was sacrosanct and considered common sense 10 years ago by even the liberals. But now it's evil and bigoted because times change. That's not the way it's going to work, dude. You already had your paradigm. Your paradigm is, you don't get to make up the next paradigm. No, your opponents do. That's the problem with such movements. So they'll sit there, and all the alt-leftists will morally harangue and say, you know, Holocaust denial for you, Nazi for you, you're a sexist, you're an evil, you're ignorant, you're just a Trumpanzee. Okay, let it roll off you like water, because most of the time those terms have lost all meaning anyway. Like, bigot no longer means anything. Bigot could mean, hey, you expressed a view that some random person on the left found to be bigoted. Well, that's just their opinion. Just fucking ignore them and don't even respond.
The amazing Orendo.
I'm not even going to have dialogue with these people anymore. It's not worth it. Like, half of the time they can't even speak coherently. And they want to sit there and talk about how Trump can't speak. It's like the funniest thing I've ever seen.
That would be a bet all, yeah? Cool. It's possibly practiced a few days ahead. He possibly could have, but he only needed a few seconds extra. What I'm trying to say is, if he says he started on the west side, moved to the east side before the car went downhill again, he's lying. He had to have been on the west side, stepped around the corner, and took the shot. Or he wouldn't have had time to get into position and set his camera to do so. He had all kinds of time if he knew the car was going to go down the hill and he only had to step around the corner. Yeah. He wouldn't have necessarily had to practice at all. He only needed to have 30 seconds of a warning. That's all. And I do believe he must have had a lot of warning. If he was on either one of those corners, he could have clearly seen that car. Which one of the corners was he on? He saw the car coming down the hill before he stepped around the corner and took the shot, because he was on the west corner. This is my issue. It's not Photoshop. It's what Kelly's story is, and why is he not telling exactly where he was. Do you get me now? There's no issue with the picture. The picture itself is, in itself is pretty neat. He's on one side of the road, and Gilmore's on the opposite side of the road. And between the two of them, they see the same things down the road. The difference is the lenses, right? In either cases, and the perspective of the line that they're shooting down. But other than that, the focus of the perspective is the same point. It's down in the intersection. And the trick of it is to make it look like that what's beyond the intersection looks like sky, when in fact it's all glare coming off of road surface. I've been meaning to look at this one too.
My name is H.A. Goodman.
To find out if layers were put on top of Kelly, one that could have been prepared. I don't think there was any need of any layer. The only evidence of anything weird in Kelly's photograph is easily shown. I'll show it to you in GIMP. I don't know if you've ever used GIMP before. This one, White Nationalist Rally Charlottesville, is the name of the photo after it's been gone through the after it's been chewed through the media. What's this one say? P.S. or no. I'm going to pop this open in GIMP. Where is it? Image editor. Wait for GIMP to load. Here's GIMP. I don't need this in memory more than once, so I'm going to just close it off. And we can see the image size has been shrunk down. Excuse me. If I go to my colors and look at the levels, you see how there's this black bar on the far side of the graph? That tells me that once already this level has been punched back this way. At least once already to get that one to be full like that. And that means more than likely this side was pulled in at least once already as well. And that explains why this is fairly granulated. Because if I was to compare that against when I took on my own digital camera, the line is not nearly that granulated. So at least the light levels were screwed with, yes. And what would that do? Is the gamma in between gets readjusted to some value on this scale, and then this determines the overall brightness of white or dark, of light or dark. So it makes this more blue looking when in fact it's gray and it's blue glare. So people, when they look at the image, they think, sky. The eye just automatically, or the brain kind of thinks sky, when in fact that's that's a tarmac road surface. Same as this tarmac road surface. Because glare is really, really bad in this image. So he zooms in with his lens, and then he tightens his aperture. That's the two things that got to occur. Two physical things got to occur, and then afterward he's limited in what he can do with the image.
I'm an author, columnist, and journalist. To support this YouTube channel, go to my Patreon link below. We're on our way to 100,000 subscribers.
Marcus doesn't need to
read
be
the
put
title.
in.
If it's
That's
offensive
totally
to you,
legit,
don't
man.
watch any longer. But if you want to enjoy the soulful...
If the car's going fast enough, it goes underneath him faster than it takes him to fall back to the ground. It's simple as that.
sounds of Clinton indictments, the deep state crumbling as we speak. What else? The FBI cover-up.
Only one person made it over the car. Think of it that way. All the rest didn't.
That is exposed daily. The fact that Obama used a FISA warrant based in part on a Fusion GPS fake news dossier. Then continue. You can follow me on Minds.com, Steemit, Vimeo, Gab, BitChute. Subscribe to this channel. We're on our way to 100,000 subscribers, and it is because of you. I want to thank you. Before we get into 5 months of FBI text messages missing, so they destroyed 5 months of text messages, or they're withholding 5 months of text messages. Either way, Peter Strzok has more incriminating evidence. We already know from what we've read from Peter Strzok that he deleted, well, we know from the FBI reports that he deleted or edited 5 references to gross negligence. Act. She broke the Espionage Act. She was extremely careless. You don't even need intent. You need gross negligence, which is what extreme carelessness means. But he deleted 5 references to gross negligence, which is actually the words used in the statute. Okay, so he was part of the cover-up. Then his discussion with Lisa Page and Andrew McCabe reference a insurance policy. That was Trump Russia. So the whole thing was political in nature. There's zero evidence for it. Zero. Not only does Dianne Feinstein, Adam Schiff, James Clapper all state there's zero evidence, but the quote-unquote Russian interference had no bearing on the election. They could have interfered or not interfered. Clinton still would have lost. So it's completely ridiculous. People who are pushing that myth are doing it either for clicks or because they're not very intelligent, or on YouTube clicks, or they're beholden to the same
baseball player or a surfer.
Propaganda. Oh, Hillary's going to win. It's going to be a landslide. Oh, she didn't win. Oh, Russia. So it's the CNN, Washington Post, New York Times propaganda that filters down to lesser publications online and then onto YouTube and then onto the pundits in quote-unquote independent media that are beholden to the Democratic Party. Anyway, 5 months of... I'll read you. FBI loses 5 months of text messages between anti-Trump agents, blames glitch. Isn't that interesting? The AP reports that you should read this. It's unbelievable. But the department also said in a letter to lawmakers that its record of messages sent to and from the agent Peter Strzok was incomplete because the FBI, for technical reasons, had been unable to preserve and retrieve about 5 months' worth of communications. Oh, well, if it's just for technical reasons, no problem. Oh, my God. They wouldn't do anything that wasn't above board. Kind of like, oh, I don't know, when Comey said on October 27th, the investigative team that had finished the investigation in July laid out for me what they could see from the metadata of this fella, Anthony Weiner. Can you believe this is Comey's testimony? This is a BBC article that quotes James Comey. This fella, Anthony Weiner. Gee, what a salt-of-the-earth guy Comey is. He's a 6'8" Debbie Wasserman Schultz, but what a salt-of-the-earth guy. What a good, grounded individual. This fella, Anthony Weiner. Like you didn't know who this fella was. Like you're so naive and you're just trying to do your job and you're just a great law enforcement official, James Comey. You give police officers and law enforcement officials and FBI agents who are honorable people, noble people, you give them a bad name, Mr. Comey, because of what you did, because of what Peter Strzok did, because of what Andrew McCabe did, because of what Lisa Page and Bruce Orr, all of them, of the DOJ. Bruce Orr's wife worked with Fusion GPS. It is an overt cover-up. If anyone can't see it, it's because they just hate Trump. Well, guess what? He's going to win again. And it won't be anyone's fault but the Democratic Party and but the same people who lost to Trump. You cheat.
Be quite honest, Greg, I think the thing to watch for is anyone who makes such a claim, can they duplicate it to prove the point? Or are they just going to point to it and not show how it works? Because if you can't duplicate it, if you can't replicate it, I don't have to replicate it. All I need to do is to show where the things which people are asking about, well, how could this be? How could this? All I need to do is show where they are. If we look at the video from the attack/accident from the other side, it is very clear. In fact, if we look at Jeremiah Knupp, who's taking pictures from almost a reverse angle from the parking machine, from the parking lot. What is it called? The parking building. As he shoots back down this way, he sees that Marcus has been knocked downhill. Because Marcus is going over to the front of the van, or front of the Tundra. He got knocked back the length of the Tundra, 5 meters downhill. That's how he made it over the car. Because when he was going over the car, he was up by the top of the hill. Well, he's farther up the hill by the rear of the Tundra. So that's when you're looking at the Ryan Kelly shot from the angle we're starting from, that's what you got to take in mind when he's falling, is he's now falling in the air close to the front of the Tundra. He isn't by the rear of the Tundra, he's by the front of the Tundra. The image doesn't make that really clear because of the effect of the zooming of the lens. Flattens everything out. You can't tell where things are in space downrange quite as well, but you can see what's in front of what. The woman with yellow sign was shown behind the Challenger. I haven't noticed that yet.
Bernie, you lose to Trump. That's just end of story. Don't cheat. If you play a football game or a game of chess or Monopoly and you cheat and lose, that's a problem. You have to look in the mirror and evaluate your life. It's one thing to lose fair and square, but if you cheat and then still lose, not good. Not good at all. Anyway, continue. What they could see from the metadata was that there were thousands of Secretary Clinton's emails on that device, including what they thought might be the missing emails from her first 3 months as Secretary of State. So, when talking about the most ridiculous episode in U.S. history, when Anthony Weiner was sexting pictures of his wiener to between 20 and 100 women, probably over 100 women or men or people throughout the country, that laptop that he used to send photos, to download photos from other people, which could have easily then infected his computer with a code or a virus or whatever, and that could have easily found some way to get to Clinton's server, which is what I've been told numerous times. This debacle in U.S. history, this digital security, insane tragedy. As Weiner was sexting his wiener to the whole planet, Uma Abedin downloaded classified intelligence, 18 classified emails to that laptop that emanated from Clinton's server. And salt of the earth Comey oh, gee, that fella Anthony Weiner. Couldn't find anything wrong with 3 months of her emails missing. And by the way, the first 3 months of her server use was unencrypted. And she found ways to transfer top secret intelligence from secure government locations onto, excuse me, an unencrypted server. The issue here is Trump, Russia, the whole Mueller probe is when people say, oh, well, he wants to fire Mueller and become a dictator. No, you're president of the United States, you're elected president. The Democrats have no right to investigate Trump based on no evidence. If someone investigates you based on no evidence, what are you going to do? If someone investigates you and accuses you of something you didn't do, how do you respond? You sue the person. You respond peacefully. Okay. With Trump, he was accused of something he didn't do. So it doesn't matter if you don't like him. You don't like him, then hate the Democratic Party. Don't hate Republicans or Trump. Trump said he was going to build a wall. He's going to build a wall eventually. And he'll get the deal with DACA to save the dreamers and to give them citizenship, which is what I want. I know dreamers. I know people who came here as babies or very, very young people, and I want them to become citizens. They're good.
They're good people. I can't help but wonder to some degree if what HA is making is a fallacious argument, since he knows good examples. Okay, fine. Anecdotal is anecdotal, though. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm not saying it's right. All I'm saying is such evidence is often spurious. So it need be taken with either a grain of salt or shown some other way. There's a big difference too between. I mean, you can tell it on a case by case basis if you really got to. Who's interested in being a part of the culture? Like the dreamer. Who's there and what's the dream?
People. But I'm going all over the place.
Yeah.
GCHQ, the British intelligence agency, spied on Trump in 2015. They found nothing. They found absolutely nothing. Obama used the dumb fake news dossier. His FBI used it to get a FISA warrant to continue to spy. They eventually gave the dossier to Trump and said, here, we have this. And Trump was like, this is ridiculous. And actually asked his lawyer, who was named in the dossier, if he, excuse me, I'm sorry, if he was actually at a certain location in Europe. No, never happened.
Flu season, isn't it?
So now that lawyer is suing Fusion GPS along with Russian bankers and a Russian entrepreneur. But if you ever wonder, why do you think this is all happening? Is this if this was a ideological battle over policies, then why don't Democrats focus only on policies? It's not. They had 2 chances. They only worked twice for immigration reform in 8 years of Obama, 2010, 2013. And then Obama unilaterally implemented the DACA program. But that has to, he said it was a short-term fix. That has to go through, become a law. Democrats didn't focus on that for 2 years of his presidency. Only 2 years. They tried and failed. Sorry. Now they're focused only on Russia. Only on Russia. 150,000% on Russian collusion. That every time, the longer this goes on, the more people tune out and the less evidence there is. And actually, the more evidence there is of a cover-up to help Hillary Clinton and of illegal activity, of Obama spying illegally on Trump, because there's no evidence. Trump didn't write a check to Russian hackers. He didn't work with Russia to defeat Clinton. Clinton had an FBI criminal investigation that was a cover-up, but a week before the election. This is after Comey said she was too stupid to indict. A week before the election, they said, oh, by the way, she could be indicted as president. And we're reopening the case because we found hundreds of thousands of emails that originated from Clinton onto Anthony Weiner's server, and now, over a year later, we find 18 classified emails. Could you imagine if classified emails, 18 classified emails were found on Anthony Weiner's computer
get caught holding.
a week before the election? And Anthony Weiner's now in prison. Could you imagine if he went to prison before the election? She would lose. Trump won 30 states. He would have won more states. So the issue here is an overt cover-up that is unfolding before our eyes. Peter Strzok's 5 months of text messages are missing. Brian Pagliano's the person who set up Clinton's server, was paid $5,000 unintentionally.
Okay.
Have you ever paid anyone unintentionally $5,000? Let me just. What am I doing?
Can't
Writing
say
this
I
check
have.
for
No,
5,000. What? Here. Oh, that was unintentional. I just gave you that $5,000 check. That was unintentional. But no, you pay somebody for a service $5,000.
Of course.
And you're doing it for a reason. Brian Pagliano, his 4 years at the State Department were missing. How he even got the job at the State Department is another question.
Here, have this $5,000.
He was subpoenaed by Congress, and even Jason Chaffetz is like, we subpoenaed him and he didn't show up. He just... There are so many people who feel they're above the law. That's going to end soon, too. Trump got his tax cuts. I didn't vote for him. Trump got for... he'll get his wall. Didn't vote for the wall. Clinton indictments. Those are taking place. He will eventually end up doing every major thing that he said. The Clinton indictments help the Democratic Party more than most people know. Sorry, you're not going to catch cold if I continue to cough. There was a great, hilarious thing online with... Anyway. Give me your thoughts below. Share this segment everywhere. What happened to Peter Strzok's 5 months of missing messages? It wasn't a glitch. How stupid do you think... The FBI, the NSA, CIA, all of them, they either think we're really stupid or they just don't give a crap. They don't give a crap.
I believe that either one.
And so it's one or the other.
Yeah,
Either
it
way,
might be one or the other, or maybe
it's a danger to national security.
Some other thing alongside
deep state, quote unquote, is supposed to be working to protect us from the, really horrible terrorists, whatever. They're not supposed to be protecting the DNC or the Democratic Party or Hillary Clinton.
Specifically,
Clinton's emails are not national security. And in terms of Russia wanting Trump, they already got 20% of U.S. uranium capacity from Obama and Clinton, while there was a bribery probe where one of their spies or one of the energy executives was imprisoned for bribery. And then the American, just recently, an American trucking executive bribed him, and he's been indicted now. And all of this is as yellow cake uranium is shipped out of the country under Obama. Give me your thoughts below. Share this segment everywhere. Subscribe to this YouTube channel. We are almost at 100,000 subscribers. And I think this year, because of the same Democratic Party that cheated Bernie, and you live by the deep state, you're going to fall politically by the deep state. So the same Democratic Party that will be undone.
If Bernie allowed himself to be
because
cheated,
of its
can
actions,
you really say that he was cheated?
I think that this channel will continue to grow.
This is why I got Arlo Guthrie
thank you for your
for
support.
my background tonight.
And you have a fantastic Sunday. This week is going to be very, 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 very interesting.
I bet. That's true. I believe.
What happened in the comment section? What happened?
Excuse me. We do this. HA. Anything else on your channel from today? From 3 hours ago. Fi's a middle. I wondered about this.
My name is H.A. Goodman, and I'm an author, columnist, and journalist. My friend, Randy Credico.
Totally worried about this, or wondered about this. Gee whiz, they changed his shirt. Oh, no.
Just tweeted out several hours back something very, very important. This is a very serious matter. The current president, Lenin Moreno, is not committed to self-determination of Ecuador as the great Rafael Correa. Please send and send and send. And he included me with other really brilliant journalists and just really wonderful people within the tweet. Then he wrote, "This is a genuine, serious situation. Trust me, I know. Please mobilize." He linked to an article, Ecuador's Korea afraid for Julian Assange's safety. So before I get started reading the article, well, first off, Randy Credico is a good friend of Julian Assange. Randy Credico
Apparently, Julian Assange
has
is the new
visited Assange
JFK.
numerous times.
If you think that there was actually a chance of Trump taking a bullet, maybe it's there. The chance that Julian Assange will be killed in front of a TV camera for the world to fucking see is really high.
Randy wouldn't tweet out hyperbole. So I'm taking it seriously and I'm doing this segment. And I'm going to read you this article, Ecuador's Correa afraid for Julian Assange's safety. It will only take pressure from the United States to withdraw protection for Assange, said Correa. Former Ecuadorian President Rafael Correa has warned that WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange's days are numbered at the Ecuadorian embassy in London.
I believe it.
Correa, who gave Assange asylum back in 2012, said he's afraid for Julian Assange's safety due to the new government's actions with regards to his case. He said that he believes President Lenin Moreno is likely to take away the support previously afforded to the anti-secrecy activist. It will only take pressure from the United States to withdraw protection for Assange, and surely it's already being done. And maybe they await the results of the February 4th referendum to make a decision, said Correa. When asked, does he have evidence to support his claim, Correa said it's clear that Moreno, quote, has no convictions. It's clear that he has yielded to the unusual power brokers and will, quote, soon yield regarding the question of Assange. The 54-year-old economist added that the ambassador for the United States was shamelessly interfering in Ecuador's internal affairs, something, quote, that hadn't occurred during 10 years of his government. So, this is a very, very, very serious issue. And number one, the people who... I wrote 100 articles in the Huffington Post, the Hill Salon, all for Bernie Sanders, stating that Clinton would lose to Trump.
I wonder, did Bernie
The reason I keep bringing that up is because the entire planet stated
he admits to being
she was going to win, landslide,
that's an
all
honest
of
question, right?
Excuse me. Democrats lost. Obviously, they didn't listen to me. I'm just one voice. But I warned them of what would take place in 2015, long before WikiLeaks, DNC, and Podesta emails. Long before James Comey stated that Hillary Clinton was too stupid to indict.
Chuckles
the writing
Comey
was on the wall. Clinton lost for a million reasons. It was not Julian Assange's fault.
Charlemagne Comey.
Russia had nothing to do with it. And this insanity, people are digging into the Russian propaganda, the neo-McCarthy, the Cold War propaganda.
Oh, the titles. Charlemagne.
Even more now. With each passing day, we learn more and more evidence that it's a bunch of nonsense, that there's zero evidence backing the insanity that Russia helped Trump. And more and more each day, as we learn, this myth is debunked. Like I wrote in Debunking the Trump-Russia Myth, in my book below, people dig their heels in. And the power structure, definitely within the Democratic Party, but even within the Trump administration, playing ball with the quote-unquote deep state, digs its heels in. All because we learned Hillary Clinton was utterly corrupt from her own words. WikiLeaks publishes the words of people in power. WikiLeaks publishes only pristine documents. They're not like CNN. They're not going to win any fake news awards. That's for CNN. That's for CNN.
They're
and the
not going to
Washington
win any
Post.
fake news awards.
So if you're a Democrat and you don't like Trump, blame the Democrats. Don't blame WikiLeaks or Julian Assange.
Good point.
That being said, a person like me, long-winded as usual, but the point is this.
They'll be whispered of as
for
if
a
they
person
can't be
like me
trusted
who moved
by idiots.
towards the center, policy-wise, I'm still, towards the left. But in terms of politics, overall politics, a person like me being cheated during the primary, who gave, his heart and soul to Bernie Sanders.
Thank you. I was thinking earlier it would be more honest for him to frankly admit that he feels cheated when he says Bernie was cheated. And he just admitted to it. H.A., don't take this the wrong way, buddy. Don't take this the wrong way. If you never ever said Bernie was cheated again, you'd be better off for what you just said. Leave it at that. It was me who was cheated. Fair point, man. Fair point.
And then voted Jill Stein and wanted a complete kind of paradigm shift. Didn't get it because the Democratic Party cheated me and millions of other people and the country.
God damn right.
Of a Sanders presidency, of a Sanders nomination.
Yeah.
That type of person who is now open to seeing President Trump in a viewpoint, in a vantage point that isn't, oh my God, he's this buffoon, he's a Russian bot, all that stuff. I'm able to look at things a lot more objectively, specifically because I realize the corruption on the left. My point is this, if the Trump administration in any way hurts Julian Assange, or if Julian Assange is kicked out of the embassy because of Trump, or because of the Trump administration, or because of the U.S. under this administration, a person like me is going to move right back to where I started, very, very far away from having a more objective viewpoint of Trump. Meaning the hurt and the frustration and the anxiety
The betrayal
and the disappointment that I and millions of other Americans and millions of other people around the world will feel if the Trump administration pushes does not only commits not only an immoral act but an illegal act by hurting Assange in that manner, kicking him out of forcing Ecuador to kick him out of the embassy. Where the United Nations has ruled he's being unlawfully detained and he's owed money compensation by the UK and Sweden. He's never been charged of a crime. This is the case against, quote unquote case against Julian Assange from the United States perspective is extrajudicial. He's not even a U.S. citizen, and he hasn't even broken any laws. And so the thing is, at the end of the day, if anything were to happen to Assange, it's not only me and my tiny little voice, relative to these giant corporations. It's millions of people who see Trump in a different manner and then would kind of revert back to, okay, the guy is a deep state pawn. He's not fighting the deep state. He's not fighting Clinton. Mm-hmm. He's not fighting all these people. Even if he indicted Clinton, which is which I've been saying for years, and he forces Ecuador, I would still then move back to where I first started, way on the left, doing everything possible to ensure that Trump wasn't elected in my way. People say, oh, well, you should have voted for Clinton. No, wouldn't have happened. But my overall point is that it would be a very stupid move by Trump. I'm trying to focus on the political repercussions because,
politically speaking,
the moral repercussions we all know.
Itself, the Democratic,
how many truth tellers are there?
Grassroots level, yes, my friend.
The Washington Post? Are you kidding? The New York Times, CNN. It's almost as if they get one memo, or one FISA memo. That's Fusion GPS. And the propaganda is circulated, and they all repeat the same things. And as their propaganda is debunked or exposed,
Or mocked.
they double down, they double down, they double down. Clinton's going to win. Oh, she lost. Russia's fault. And before that, Bernie can't win. And of course, they pick the loser. And then it's, oh my God, Assange, WikiLeaks. Now this fake news, Nigel Farage, all these... The people who are very powerful can't stand that their corruption has been exposed by Julian Assange and WikiLeaks. So they're going to do anything possible to try to hurt him. But the big reason why I can overlook policy-wise
WikiLeaks
Trump
is not so much show to distract.
is that there are certain
WikiLeaks is
tenets
legit leaks
or principles
it's legit
that I
information
respect
which has been
regarding
shown
Trump, or that I guess assume
if there was no WikiLeaks, the invisible hand of the market would not be nearly as effective. And if it weren't for WikiLeaks, I don't think cryptocurrency would work either.
believe Trump to stand for. In many ways, taking on the existing
That's why you won't let WikiLeaks
power
go
structure
down.
within the deep
Trump,
state.
Trump's got to be real
That's not
careful
to say
with
that
WikiLeaks.
he's not going to spy on Americans, or I'm not completely naive.
And Assange by extension.
When he said he loved WikiLeaks, I believed it. I do think that Trump loves WikiLeaks.
When he said he was going to put said he was going to put Clinton in jail, I kind of believed it too. Is he really?
He loves WikiLeaks, and he respects Julian Assange.
I'd like to believe that.
And it's the people around him, the remnants of Obama's administration, who are kind of pushing the assault against Assange. So, look, I've been told that there are former Trump officials or people in the Trump administration that watch my channel. Great. Just understand that any goodwill or any objective viewpoint that the Trump administration has received from people on the left who just can't stand the Democrats so much that they're willing to overlook
everything
Trump
else.
policies
Yep.
for kind of core principles.
For the sake of being
Clinton indictments is one.
at least partly unified.
Making sure that FBI agents don't control the fate of American democracy. Exposing Obama's spying on a candidate. So we have a peaceful transition of power in the United States, and Obama
Seems
just
to have occurred
ruined
too.
that
Although
by
there is a bit of
spying
a
on Trump without any evidence.
underground coup in effect.
There are other things too. Not being as much of a neocon. Sorry. But give me your thoughts below. Share this segment everywhere.
Fair.
I guess my long-winded response is keep Julian Assange safe. And I urge the Trump administration to not continue Obama's policies, because that would be
a mistake.
I don't think he wins in 2020 if that's the case. Give me your thoughts. Thank you so much for listening. Support Julian Assange. Support WikiLeaks.
Want to believe that
so
he could
much.
turn that much to the base by 2020 over that one issue? I don't know about that. That might be a bit of a stretch for HA. Then again, HA was at least partly right about his forsoothing for the last little while. Forsooth, methinks the lady doth pull too much. She not only pulls too much, but charges too much to play. Gadzooks says here she's not supposed to charge at all. See, it's so very easy. It's so very easy. Fall back into old manners. I say old manners. I lived in England for 3 years when I was a kid. Many, many years ago. So every now and again I get into the, frankly, what I call it, A Monty Python bent, something like that. This is the third one.
My name is H.A. Goodman. I'm an author, columnist, and journalist. Take a second, read the title. Proceed at your own caution. If you've read the title, it's 11 seconds. These are historic times, and we have a peaceful transition of power in this country since Washington. That changed with Obama, spying on the candidate of a rival political party simply because his former Secretary of State, who owned a once unencrypted server and managed to transfer top-secret intelligence from SIPRNet, JWICs, and SCIFs onto that server, was going up against this candidate and eventually lost $1.2 billion, outspending him 2-1 with media collusion after cheating Bernie Sanders.
Right.
You can follow me on Minds.com, Gab, Vimeo, BitChute, and Steemit. My books are below, but are top secret emails, but are deleted emails. The Iwan Brothers and Debbie Wasserman Schultz, and Debunking the Trump-Russia Myth. This is really important. GOP Congressman reveals House Intel Committee will release top secret FISA memo to public. This is the Blaze. If progressives or liberals say the Blaze, why are you reading the Blaze? Well, CNN's better. CNN's more accurate. MSNBC, the Daily Beast, Think Progress, they're more accurate. Chris Enlow, weekend editor. A secret memo detailing alleged government surveillance abuses will be released to the public soon, according to a House Republican. What's happening? Representative Dave Joyce, Republican Ohio, said Saturday the House Intelligence Committee plans to begin the release process very soon. If not immediately. Plans to begin the release process very soon, if not immediately. Great news, our efforts to release the memo have been effective. 26,000 likes, 13,000 retweets. The process, he said, might take up to 19 congressional working days, according to the House 2018 calendar. So 19 days. But this is very interesting, and it's really important for everyone to share this. This is unbelievable. Oftentimes, a paper like Vanity Fair, a publication, will be a good publication of record, especially when the Democratic Party reverses course and changes the narrative. So at first it was Susan Rice never unmasked. Then it was, oh yeah, Susan Rice did unmask. Then it was, of course she had every right to unmask. There was nothing wrong with what she did.
Of course she did.
Then it was, Obama never spied on Trump. Well, Obama spied on Trump, but that was because of the lack of evidence. Ah, okay, then they backtrack. So this is really, really interesting. This is how ex-Christopher Steele compiled his explosive Trump-Russia dossier. There's nothing explosive about it. That's a whole other story. They're trying to, what they've tried to do since day one is repeat or duplicate WikiLeaks. And please check out my segment prior to this one. A very, very good friend, close friend of Julian Assange, Randy Credico, who's a great guy, has kind of sounded the alarms on Twitter and stated that Assange is at risk of being forced out of the embassy. He's in danger. Everybody should know that. So I did a segment prior to this one. Please check that out. That's really, really serious. Julian Assange is one of the only truth tellers, really a global figure in world history now, and one of the only truth tellers left in the world. We can go on forever about how important Julian Assange and how noble he is, and how important WikiLeaks is. But I'll read you. But ultimately, in any examination of the veracity of an intelligence report, professionals weigh the messenger as heavily as the news. Oh, really? So they weigh the messenger. Fusion GPS still can't. When it was published, the report was published. BuzzFeed stated that the Fusion GPS
CNN
report compiled by Christopher Steele contains errors and is unverified. Christopher Steele was paid money. Bruce Orr, a Department of Justice official, his wife, worked with Fusion GPS. Oh, isn't it interesting how the Russian lawyer that met with Trump Jr. met with Fusion GPS prior to the meeting? So then you have essentially a propaganda public relations firm in Fusion GPS being sued by 3 Russian bankers, an entrepreneur, and Trump's lawyer for defamation. So that's a whole other story, but here, I'll just read you. But ultimately, in any examination of the veracity of an intelligence report, professionals weigh the messenger as heavily as the news. Steele's credentials were a real thing, and apparently impressive enough to scare the hell out of James Clapper, the Director of National Intelligence, James Comey, John Brennan, the CIA Director, and Admiral Michael Rogers, the NSA Director. How else can one explain their collective decision to pass on the still unverified dossier to the President and President-elect? This is a profanity alert. This is a profanity alert. Are you fucking kidding me? Are you fucking kidding me? You have a fake news dossier about Trump allegedly getting peed on. And that's supposed to save the country from what? 20% of U.S. uranium being sold to Russia under Obama and Clinton? Are you kidding me? With the Committee on Foreign Investment, Secretary of Commerce Gary Locke being
all we got to
linked
do
to
is
a
find
Bill
the right
Clinton donor
pause frame.
scandal. Oh, and suddenly, and then let's not get into Robert Mueller and the FBI and racketeering probe that imprisoned a Russian spy, an energy official that came to the United States to bribe American trucking companies
really
so
asking
yellow
for
cake
a
uranium
rhyme.
could
I
be
know,
shipped
I
out of the
know.
country, which it did. Yellow cake uranium was shipped out of the United States of America under President Obama, who was so tough on Putin. And Mark Lambert is alleged to have bribed the same guy who was brought here to bribe Americans and who Obama imprisoned. But then Obama allowed, not only, this is so convoluted, Obama not only allowed the Vadim Makarin to come in here, the Russian executive energy official, but also Natalia Veselnitskaya. They both got the Russian lawyer. Okay, so why would the Obama administration allow both people to come in if they were so tough on Putin? It's a ridiculous narrative, but why in the profanity alert? Why in the fuck did the CIA, the NSA, and the FBI give Trump and Obama the FISA, the Fusion GPS dossier? This is insane, and it says right here. We forget this. We forget this. But this is the heart of, it's going to take 19 days, fine. The heart of the matter, ladies and gentlemen, is that the intelligence community was so starved for evidence.
Wow.
They had no evidence. They lacked just basic evidence. And see, it's not a matter of, I can't stress enough to Democrats or to liberals, or I wrote 100 articles for Bernie Sanders.
This is if the
I
devil
did
himself
more than
shows
most
up
people.
with the dossier.
I
You want the
defended
evidence?
Bernie when all the Democrats were against him, when all the pundits said he had no chance. Not only did he have a chance, he was the only thing that could have won.
Boom.
So when people say, "Oh, HA," don't blame me. Blame the DNC. Blame Debbie Wasserman Schultz. Blame everyone who cheated Bernie Sanders. Who, by the way, the Democratic Party, the DNC official, used Bernie's religion against him. They said, "Oh, he's a Jew. Maybe we don't know how much of a Jew he is.
Liar.
Maybe we can go ahead and paint him as an atheist." Isn't that a fantastic Democratic Party?
I never saw that
And it's
person
unbelievable.
Before. The check is in the mail.
It is just unbelievable how people can forget. This is below. Ultimately, the veracity, in any examination of the veracity of an intelligence report, professionals weigh the messenger as heavily as the news. Steele's credentials were the real thing, which he doesn't have credentials. He's a former agent who compiled baloney to make money. And now there's a criminal investigation now in Congress regarding Christopher Steele. And Fusion GPS and BuzzFeed won't be around longer. WikiLeaks will be remembered forever. They're now part of world history. You think people will remember Fusion GPS? Not only if they do some research on this time period. People will always remember Julian Assange WikiLeaks, because what they did was actually expose
Oh my God, he managed to
the
burp
corrupt
during both
practices
of
of people in power. And if there weren't emails showing that that Trump cheated anybody or that the RNC cheated Trump, that's the Democrats' fault for being more corrupt, not the other way around. Impressive enough to scare the hell out of James Clapper, the Director of National Intelligence, James Comey, John Brennan, Michael Rogers, the NSA Director. How else can one explain their collective decision to pass on the still unverified dossier to the President and President-elect? The collective, well, here's the obvious explanation. The obvious explanation is that it was a, number one, FBI cover-up with Hillary Clinton. Number two, if there was any collusion, it was with the media, it was with Obama, it was with the Democratic Party against Bernie, and the deep state with Obama to harm, to hurt, to undermine Trump, to ensure that he doesn't become president in some way, and they couldn't find a way. So the insurance policy that Peter Strzok talked about with Andrew McCabe and Lisa Page came to fruition. This is sick. This is not about whether you want tax cuts or the wall. I voted for Jill Stein. This is not about that. This is about a democratically elected government being overthrown by insane liberals, quote-unquote liberals, who don't mind that women are now flowing through Libya trying to flee war-torn nations because of Obama and Bush, mainly Bush, who was the worst president in the history of our country. These women are now forced to consume massive amounts of contraceptives because they expect rape through Libya. That is the no-drama Obama. It's not no-drama Obama. It's women who are fleeing war-torn countries and have to go through a failed state called Libya because of Obama, who are now at risk of rape. They take contraceptives in advance because they expect to be raped. Obama. That's his full name. Give me your thoughts below. The FBI, the CIA, the NSA. You know what I've been calling them lately, though? And the ODN and the Director of National Intelligence all passed the Steele dossier to Trump and Obama. And then Trump, some reports say, actually spoke to one of his lawyers who's now suing GPS to say, is this true? You know, at this location. I think it was Prague. And the lawyer, was it Cohn? One of the lawyers said, no, I was never there. That's why he's suing Fusion GPS. Give me your thoughts below. And then the idiotic defense is, well, some of it was true. If you're at the movies and you're with a friend and you were not doing anything like cheating on your wife or your husband, and then somebody says, oh yeah, I saw so-and-so, he was cheating on his wife or husband. Well, that person was at the movies, but he just wasn't engaging in the gossip or hearsay. That's what gossip is about. Some things are true, and it's manipulated to hurt you. This is not going to end well politically for the Democrats, because they are completely out of their minds, and they're the ones who need their heads checked. Give me your thoughts below. Share this segment everywhere. The FBI, CIA, and NSA, and Director of National Intelligence all gave the unverified, ridiculous baloney FISA, the baloney dossier to Trump and Obama. That's something that needs to be publicized again, because people forgot that. And the FISA memo will almost certainly touch on this, and that's, 19 days. Give me your thoughts. Share this segment everywhere. Follow me on Minds.com, Gab, Vimeo, BitChute, Steemit. I'll try to get on other platforms very soon. And
I really like this
all I
pen.
can tell you is that the roof is caving in.
See how my mind works?
Nobody's fault. Nobody's fault.
Baloney.
But Hillary Clinton, and then Debbie Wasserman Schultz, and even President Obama. Don't blame Trump. If you don't like Trump, oh, I hate Trump. I hate Trump. Oh, my God. Don't blame him. If anything, he shouldn't politically be here now. The RNC didn't want him. He told the RNC to go F themselves, and he's still here. If Bernie told the DNC to go F themselves, he should have fought back, but he didn't. Okay. He was spied on since 2015. GCHQ, the British spy agency, was sending information Sending information to the same people who gave Trump and Obama the dumb dossier, the ODNI, CIA, FBI. They found nothing. They found nothing. The Mueller probe is let's try to create some air of some allure that Trump had colluded with Russia, so we're going to investigate it. He's not even accused of a specific crime. Hillary Clinton, numerous crimes. The biggest one, transferring top secret intelligence onto an unencrypted server, a server that was once unencrypted. How she did that, nobody knows. Then you have a weapons deal scandal that David Sirota broke of the International Business Times and Andrew Perez. Liberal Democrats. Have fun if you're on the left trying to go up against them. They might think I'm nuts, but that's a quid pro quo. Countries that gave donations while she was Secretary of State had exponentially greater weapons deals. Then you have the UBS scandal. That's also a clear quid pro quo. UBS in trouble with the IRS. She flies to Switzerland. Suddenly they're not as much in trouble, and UBS gives them money. Quid pro quo. Crimes. RICO laws. Crimes. So crime committed and a law that's broken. What did Trump do? What did he pay a Russian hacker?
Schwabe.
With what? Where's the check? Do Russian hackers have emails? Where are the communications between Carter Page and Manafort and Russian hackers? The DNC was never hacked. That's the quote-unquote original sin. Give me your thoughts below. We can go on forever about that. But the quote-unquote deep state gave Trump and Obama a copy of this to intimidate Trump, and it didn't work. Give me your thoughts. Share this segment everywhere. Follow me on Minds.com, Vimeo, Gab, BitChute, Steemit.
Steemit and others. Steemit's got some interesting features. I went looking at it the other night due to another guy I follow. His name's Chris Simpson. Steemit lets you see how they're performing in the sense of how they're getting donations based on particular work that they do, which is pretty cool. I dig it. That is HA. Oh, I like having fun with my marker. Is true. Bearing. Don't see much else here to look at. I think I'm actually going to call it quits for the break. Now that I'm... This might be interesting. This would be good to end with.
All right, everyone, it's time for a quick response to Jared Holt because, of course, you know, I was sent screenshots of a thing he had posted back in high school on Facebook that wasn't very flattering as far as someone who pretends to be, I guess, a total far-left progressive. And he's deleted the comment, but there's an archive of it, link in the description. By the way, disclaimer, this video is definitely fair use. He is a political commentator and pundit, so it's not really cyberbullying. And by the way, I would say first and foremost, I don't, by the way, Jared, have any problem whatsoever with what you posted. I'm willing to accept, hey, you know, I was in high school. This was basically a senior, I guess, prank or something. Now, Arkansas must be a little bit weird in how its high school Facebook pages operate if this was deemed okay by your school. But okay, let me accept that, though. Don't you see how that's you being a fucking hypocrite by complaining about that fact and saying that I'm misrepresenting you? You're willing to dig out a clip of a video, not even a full video, but a clip reposted by somebody else from 5 years ago, pass it off, I guess, as current, and say that it somehow represents my current beliefs. I'm not the only person you've done this to. You're willing to talk about how everyone who talks to an ethno-nationalist is an enabler, and you said something years ago that makes you a bad person, like the Kuzniar book review that's like Kuzniar is not even a white supremacist. She does the fucking LARPing thing with anime getup. You apparently think that she's a member of Stormfront. So you're willing to say all those things and then cry foul. You turn around and cry foul when somebody does that to you. They take something and pretend as though they're actually offended by it, which was the point, and I think it went over your head. I'm not offended by this, Jared. I believe in free speech. I don't care if you call someone a slut. I don't really care about that. But when you would never show that deference to me or to any other independent commentator, when you want to cast us off as a den of Nazis for talking to people, yeah, you're going to get the shit that you throw around. When you dig around on the internet for shit, you're going to get a little bit messy now, aren't you? So maybe you've learned your lesson. I really hope you did. Because I still don't think that you are the primordial author of the malevolence from the middle man media, which is what you could call groups like Right Wing Watch that do some of the dirty gutter sniping work, I guess, for the CNNs and MSNBCs that are too far above it. They're considered too mainstream and credible to write the hit pieces on the alt media because they spent so many years talking about how we didn't matter. Now all of a sudden they're rethinking that and saying, oh, well, we can't really do much about it other than maybe attacking PewDiePie once in a while. We'll delegate that to Soros's other ventures. You know, the funny thing is, this is really funny. You have posted many times recently about, oh, Breitbart's falling apart, it's a bunch of bullshit, they're hypocrites, look at Bannon, haha, he's ruined his career. And then this happens. You don't look in the mirror and don't see how you're fundamentally similar to exactly what you're trying to apparently fight against. Like the evils and ills that you see on the right, like violent Nazi, intolerance, lying or misrepresenting arguments or whatever, this is exactly what you're doing, dude. It's exactly what the alt-left does on a regular basis. You have to have your fans, I guess, defend you on Twitter. Come on, dude. I'm trying to wake you up. I'm trying to tell you, hey, you know, you literally do this to other people for a living. By the way, how long do you think that's going to be viable as a career path? You know, writing books, that's always going to be a viable career path. What about managing your fucking blog and writing the off Right Wing Watch article? Probably won't. Are they even aware that you made this post? Like, did you tell, if it's not concerning, why'd you even delete it? Like, wouldn't you want Right Wing Watch to be able to see and judge that for themselves? Or are you afraid of losing your position there? Afraid that they won't let you write an article anymore or something? It's probably the case. But, you know, I'm not here to screw anybody over. But, you know, when you mess with the bull, you get the horns. So be wary. Be a little more restrained. This is what... People have got to start showing a little bit of restraint. It's all in good jest. Like, you know, nobody really cares, especially people on the right. They're not going to care about what you posted here. But then at the same time, you're willing to try to, like, old video footage or some fucking image that's half the time isn't even real. Now, pass it off as so and say, well, this is evidence that Crowder, you know, can't get an erection. This is evidence that Mark Dice killed somebody. That sort of bullshit. And you want to sit there and say InfoWars sensationalizes and clickbaits? My goodness, how far the so-called mighty have fallen. Then I looked, somebody posted. They posted the website sort of rankings and traffic to Right Wing Watch. And I realized I actually get about 5 times as much traffic on just my YouTube channel as all of Right Wing Watch does. That's it's pretty funny. Yeah, it's actually quite funny to me. But no, dude, I seriously, I don't really care about the post itself. I do care about the hypocrisy. So please keep that in mind. As you go forward and expose the Nazis, you might want to be a little bit more careful with how you actually go about doing that. You might want to make sure the person's actually racist, actually really out there, actually a problem, and that you haven't done the same thing in your own past. That's about all. Peace out.
Damn. Too slow. Too slow. Working on the end there. Reading at 2:30, that is plenty. Thank you for watching, YouTube. My name is James PFP. This is the Banjocast. Pitchforks, flaming torches. I got some work to do. Some legit work to do in Blender. I don't know if it'll be Charlottesville related or not, because most of the issue which I knew was arising, I've managed to solve in the course of a stream in a good enough fashion that it works. So good. Anyone clearly looks for it can see what they're looking for. We'll be back probably in about an hour. If you have anything to say about the podcast so far, leave it in the comment below. Any questions or whatever, you can leave me a message via email or other methods. Thanks for watching.